Hello and welcome to episode 538 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRLP. Join me as always is the glorious LeagueFreak. You can also find on Twitter at LeagueFreak. How you going there, mate?
Going pretty well, Andrew. I've spent all week doing what I call a freak off.
Is that because you've been waiting for me to do the fucking podcast and I keep delaying it?
No,
fine. If he's not going to come on here, I'll go and freak off instead.
But freaking off. Let me just tell you, it requires heaps of baby oil. And after the podcast, you can look up what a freak off is.
How many babies does it take to make enough oil for one bottle?
That's a good question. You gotta put them in vices.
I didn't know if you had to use like those things they use for making juice out of oranges.
Yeah, or getting.
Or when you wring them out like it's a towel.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's the same process.
Sounds like it'd be a bit messy, especially if oil comes out, it starts getting a bit slippery.
Yeah, I reckon.
We've gone in a wrong direction.
Yeah, this is terrible.
But anyway, we'll soldier on. Because we could just dive into any old thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Where should we go first?
Let's do emails. We got 2 emails.
I reckon that's a fantastic idea.
I've held on to these emails like they're gold. Like
I love it. I love it when we start with emails.
They're precious metals. Okay, so the first email. This is we talked about the Mount Rushmores and said for people to send in their Mount Rushmores of, I think, NRL teams. We said, and we got one here from Glenn Sheether is his name. Which, let me tell you, Glenn, if my name was Sheether, man, I would be talking to everyone. I'd say, yeah, I'm the Sheether. But Glenn sent us in one.
The King. I tell you what, it feels like we're still on the baby oil conversation.
Jesus. So he says, G'day, Fergo and the Freak. Panthers supporter since the late 80s. My Mount Rushmore. Roy Simmons. Hard to argue. Greg Alexander. Hard to argue. Mm-hmm. Nathan Cleary. It's kind of hard to argue at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Girdler. And he says the first 3 were really easy. The 4th was hard. Could have picked so many more. Cheers, Glenn. Yeah, I think he's probably got it right. Hey, that you could pick a whole bunch of people for that 4th spot.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd pick Ryan Girdler.
Yeah, well, you could say yeah, but then again, he holds most of their records for scoring.
Yeah,
so
but
it's not a bad choice.
At the same time, there was Steve Carter.
Well, my mind goes to Steve Carter, yeah. That's probably who I would have had in there. But I can't argue against Girdler. Like, you just got to look at the record book and say, well, what about this? So I think it's a pretty good one from him.
And there was Colin Vandervoort.
There was Phil Adamson. Not Matt, Phil.
Phil, absolutely. Legend.
Yeah, we've got another one here from Ash. He's on the same subject. He says, pretty easy one. It's is the Newcastle Knights Mount Rushmore.
All right.
Okay, so how about this? Andrew Johns, easy.
Yep.
Paul Harrigan, easy.
Yep.
Mark Sargent, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a man that knows his Knights history, having Mark Sargent in there because he's got to be in there. Danny Badiris.
Yeah.
I can't think anyone that would
the only one I would probably consider.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you've got to have that conversation. Who do you take out? And that's Robbie O'Davis.
Yeah, and I can't put him in against any of those guys, ahead of those guys, hey?
No.
He says, tough luck to Tony Butterfield, you just missed out.
Well, maybe he can fit into the Panthers one. He did start out at Penrith.
I would like that he's got Mark Sargent in there because I would have had Mark Sargent in there too, hey?
Oh, mate. Perfect example of a no-nonsense fucking forward.
Yeah. He was really the first dude that it was like you say, no nonsense, but without question belonged at that level of the sport. Keep in mind the Knights were still very young and really led the way for a lot of the young forwards that come through as at the end of his career. He kind of showed them, like he kind of was there when Paul Harrigan and all that come on and sort of showed them what the level needed to be. So I'm so glad he had Mark Sargent in there.
Absolutely. There's a bunch of forwards too around that time, who are kind of in the same sort of realm as Mark Sargent. Another one that strikes that's similar to me, and people will probably cringe a bit at this, but you got to think about this as someone who was watching Balmain in the late 80s, early 90s, and Steve Edmed. Because he never got any recognition because he was playing in a team that had Steve Roach and Paul Sirenen and Wayne Pearce in it. But Edmund was just there, consistent, constantly solid performer, did all the dirty work. He was just there constantly the whole fucking time. And that's the one thing I loved about the Super League War, is that bugger managed to get the massive payday that he was long overdue. And boy, did he capitalise on that Super League War, because the reports there were saying that he was making insane amounts of money with the deal he signed. I think with the Cowboys. I can't remember what. I think it was the Cowboys.
Yeah, that was a weird thing about Super League. Every so often there was somebody that just...
He was just a random one.
Yeah, just a random dude got paid for whatever reason. The two sides started negotiating for them and the price went right up, and it was like, they're paying how much for that guy? It's really strange.
And it wasn't for... That was the crazy thing about Super League War, and without going down that rabbit hole for too long, they weren't spending big money on the player per se. We're spending big money to build the biggest player pool they possibly could, and they didn't care who they bought.
Yeah.
And Edmed was a classic example of that, because he was at the tail end of his career by then too, but he made a lot of money out of that last little deal. And good on him.
Yeah, good luck to him, hey?
But no, they were good. They were good Rushmores.
Yeah, I like them. I like both of them. I think that they're very... It's hard to argue with either of them at all. So I like them, hey?
Yeah, they're good.
Did you ever do a Balmain one? Balmain Tigers?
I didn't do a Balmain one.
Who would be your Balmain one?
I think a lot of people would instantly want to go towards a whole heap of players from the 80s.
Yeah, they would, wouldn't they?
And I'd be inclined to go with, let's see, you'd have to have Keith Barnes in there.
Yeah, that's the first one I thought.
I feel inclined to have Arthur Halloway, even though he's probably more aligned with the Roosters.
Yeah.
He did have a pretty prominent career at the Tigers.
Yeah.
And very successful. Who else have we got there? Wayne Pearce.
Yeah, I think you've got to have at least one of those guys from that team, that late 80s team.
Absolutely.
And would it be Pierce? I think it would be between Pearce and Roach.
Yeah, look, I'd be inclined to go Wayne Pearce, and I don't know if I had to pick another guy from the 80s, it'd be Gary Jack over Sirenen or Roach.
Really?
Yeah. I know the reason why I look at that is you look at who Gary Jack had to compete with for that test jumper, and he held it for quite a while. There's a lot of good fullbacks there at the time. Started out competing with Graham Eadie, Brett Brentnell, had a full career battle with Gary Belcher for it. And at the tail end of his career, both Belcher and Gary Jack lost out in 1 year. Do you remember which Broncos fullback took the test jumper off them in 91?
91 Broncos fullback. Was it that tall dude?
Was that tall dude?
Hoff?
Paul Hoff.
Paul Hoff, there you go. How about that? I'm good with some of this history stuff, eh?
Oh, mate, you should start doing a podcast.
I only concentrate on history from 1998 onwards, though. Only the relevant stuff.
Hang on. What is that period?
That would be called I don't know about the previous 90 years of rugby league history, and I don't want to Google it era.
That's the one.
Yeah, that would be I don't actually know what I'm talking about, but I did look at a spreadsheet once.
I have had a few people, even one just recently, when I made some tweet about. Let's be honest, I'm going to go on a little tangent here, okay? When I do stats on Twitter,
yes,
right, I'll put on there NRL history.
Yes.
right? And when I say that, I mean since 1908. Why do I say NRL history? Because I've got 240 characters to work with, and I need to keep that shit as concise as fucking possible.
Yes, and in
But I still
doing
get
that,
people.
most people would know that you are talking about the continuous linear competition that started in 1908 and continues to today. You didn't have to, like, back when it was the ARL competition, you didn't have to say New South Wales Rugby League history and ARL history, and then you didn't have to say NRL history. You just shortened it.
Exactly right. And I still get people. It'll always be one person. It's always someone different, but always one random person. And I'll say, "Oh, that's not the NRL history. That's those clubs played in the New South Wales Rugby League." And I went, I'm not replying to that shit anymore. And here's why. Okay. One, I know I don't need to be told this shit. I fucking know.
Yeah.
Right? I'm keeping it concise because the point of the tweet is the statistic, not the fucking competition.
Not the badge
that
that's on it.
Not that shorthand that I put there.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the other thing is, a lot of people say, oh no, the NRL is different to the New South Wales Rugby League. And you're going, right, let's just make this point pretty quick, okay?
As a historian, by the way.
Yeah. When the New South Wales Rugby League, as a name of a business that ran as a rugby league competition in Australia, ceased to be, and they became the ARL, there's a pretty common thing and rather amazing thing that happened when it came to the competition, and that was none of it fucking changed. All of the clubs in the New South Wales Rugby League in 1994 were playing in the ARL in 1995, and all of the players, other than the ones who retired or went to England, but I would say close to 90% of all the players in the New South Wales Rugby League in 94 were there in 1995 in the same clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And when it went from the ARL to either Super League, well, I won't actually just go to Super League, these clubs, even though they changed competitions, were still the same clubs. The Brisbane Broncos in the New South Wales Rugby League were still the Brisbane Broncos in the ARL and in the Super League, and then in the NRL when it came around. It's that's what they call linear.
Yes.
Right. It's the same competition the whole way through. Right. Don't try and tell me that the Brisbane Rugby League is the equal to or should be considered as part of the NRL. Right.
I had someone do that this week.
It can't be, because when did we have Ipswich in the Super League or in the NRL?
Exactly.
They just weren't. Okay. Now, I'm saying this not to be disrespectful to that, because I have argued for quite a while that Brisbane competition, especially the 70s and 80s, just before the Broncos came in, was legitimately as strong as the Sydney New South Wales Rugby League competition. That, to me, is not in question. Some of those teams were fucking insane strong. Right? And I mean, the proof is in the pudding. When the Broncos came in, they raided all of those clubs. And the Broncos didn't come in 1988 and were shit.
No, they were very good.
Yeah, it took them 4 years to win a premiership. That's pretty impressive. And they stayed in the finals for nearly the entirety of their history, right? So that Brisbane comp, very, 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 very good. And in that last 15 years before the Broncos came in, on a par with the New South Wales Rugby League. But the entire history of the NRL goes New South Wales Rugby League 1908 to 1994, ARL 95, 96, 97, Super League 97, NRL after that. That's the line. That's the lineage, okay? It's not up for debate. I just say NRL because it's 3 letters instead of putting all of those other acronyms in there and then wasting all my space just to try and appease one fucking idiot.
Yeah, and
just everyone focusing on the statistic that I'm trying to give you.
And the funny thing is, you will try to educate somebody on, like, they'll say, but before the NRL, it was completely different things. And you'll try and educate them on, like, no, it's been the one constant competition right the way through. It's just a different name and a different badge.
Mm-hmm.
And they refuse. They literally will refuse to hear what you're telling them. And I've had. Well, before that, it was really the Queensland and New South Wales had different competitions. Like, that's not what it was. And then there's been, before 1998, they weren't really professional. It's like the whole point of the sport is that it was professional rugby. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And so many different things. Before 1998, they weren't even like full-time professionals. Like, go tell that to Brad Fittler. He's never worked a day in his life. Like, so many different things are being put out there. In the 70s, they used to have day jobs. Like, you mean like every other professional sportsman in the entire world in the 70s? Yeah, they did. So stupid. And it really comes from the place of fucking ignorance. Like, can you imagine being so fucking ignorant that you say, we only take in this part of it, the recent history. We forget the other 90 years. Can you imagine trying to tell a baseball person, we don't think of anything that happened before 1998 as baseball. That was some other thing that they were doing.
That was called stick whack.
Yeah. They weren't real athletes back then. They weren't real players.
Yeah.
It's so ignorant. And you point it out to people, and they do. They try and educate you back, but they're so wrong about it. And like they'll say to you, well, what makes you know all this stuff? It's like reading. Reading does.
Yeah, that's basically it, reading. I find sometimes, and again, I'm talking about such an insane minority number of people, but it's those people who want to have the longest argument.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's the most pointless, futile argument. And so I stopped having it ages ago, but I thought I'd raise it here because just in case some people see it and I don't respond to it, it's not me being rude. That kind of is, but it's rude because it's a stupid notion being put towards me and I can't be asked fucking replying to it anymore.
Yeah.
The other one I get, and I know you'll probably side with it for just for shit stirring's sake, but every time I refer to East as Sydney, people go, but there was a Sydney team that played in reserve grade in 1914, and going, do you really think I'm talking about them in 2024? Right. I know they were East, okay, but most people who were born in like 2000, which is the majority of people who are reading this shit on Twitter half the time, they know them as the Sydney Roosters. So I'm doing it for them, knowing that people who are around a lot longer than that were alive and can remember when they went from being eastern suburbs to Sydney Roosters. So it still works for them as well. They still know who I'm talking about. So, all bases covered. What I'm doing is not rewriting history. I'm just being succinct because what I'm calling the team is not the important part of the tweet, right? When I do the stat and I'm doing like a list of teams and, like a win record or some shit like that, and I put the SYD on there for the Roosters, that's just so I use 3 characters. That's all. That is absolutely all. There's nothing else to it.
I like calling them Sydney City.
Oh, that is a good one.
And I also like calling them the plaything of a rich used car salesman.
I mean, it's hard to argue. Didn't they open up a history section in their Leafs club, which is named after Nick Politis?
Oh, did they?
I believe they did.
I'm surprised they didn't open up a steam room.
Steam room?
Yeah.
I think they might have had one. I
mean, that doesn't surprise me.
When I worked there, they had a sauna.
Oh, there you go.
And a pool upstairs.
Yeah.
And, Arthur Beetson was there.
Yeah, Arthur Beetson.
Used to say g'day. Say g'day to him every time he came in. Lovely man.
Balmain, great.
Oh, absolutely.
But why wasn't he in your bloody Mount Rushmore?
It's a tricky one. Because he was very good at Balmain. And I think a lot of people would put him... I find a lot of people put him in the Balmain greats list because it's Arthur Beetson.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he showed his absolute brilliance when he went to the Roosters. He was still great at Balmain, don't get me wrong. He played test football as a Balmain. But I think the the evolution of his game came at the same time that the game evolved, and he was one of the few players that rolled with it because he started out playing in the unlimited tackle rule, and when he became professional, it was probably 3 years after that they brought in the limited tackle. So just as he was getting used to the game, the rules just changed completely, and he was the first one to evolve with and change straight away, and he just went from strength to strength, especially when he was at the Roosters. I just find that he was at his peak when he was at the Roosters. So that's kind of why I didn't put him there, I guess.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't know who Arthur Beetson is because 1998. That's true. Going forward. I know who Lincoln Withers is, but not Arthur Beetson.
Is Lincoln Withers on any of your Rushmores?
I tell you what, he'd be in the biggest hit in Mount Rushmore's, I reckon.
Best defensive hooker Rushmore.
You reckon I always think of him as a halfback.
He played a bit of both.
Yeah.
Would you say he was a better defender at halfback than Andrew Johns?
Well, you know what? Okay, here's what he was: pound for pound hitter.
Oh, he's, absolutely,
without question, top. Like he's just in the Mount Rushmore. And I'm trying to think who else you would. But I tell you what. Gillespie's probably in there because he wasn't a big dude as a forward, but he would axe people. That's why it was called the axe.
Brad Izzard,
yeah, he's another one.
Mate, I have to sit down every time I think about Brad Izzard making a tackle on a specific Balmain player.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he folded him.
You've sent that video to me like 5 times, hey?
Yeah, I think if you want to see it, it's on YouPorn somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean YouTube. oh man, he just folded Benny Elias. To Benny's credit, he just got back up and played the ball. But I mean, that's what everyone did back then. But fuck me, what a hit! That was just one of the sweetest hits you'll see in football. It's up there with that one that that Cowboys second row who does nothing these days. Who is he?
Payne Haas. Oh, not Payne Haas. Yeah.
Yeah, we've already forgotten about him. That hit he put on Mitch Moses up in Dale a few years back.
Cohen Hess.
Yeah. Oh, that hit he put on Moses. Fuck.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was brutal.
Jeff Tuvey'd probably have to be in there just for the fact that he was a dude of a small stature, but he would literally, I mean, he'd tackle Shane Webke in State of Origin games and just
he didn't have to tackle his ass off all fucking game. He was insane.
Yeah, you didn't have to worry about him defensively despite his size. I think that's so they'd have to put him in there and link. And
he tackled using his arms and shoulders, not his ankles and shins like Alan Langer did.
Yeah, 100%.
I think I just heard Brisbane getting the shits.
Fuck them. If they don't like that, they can take all of their stats from their stupid little competition that, fell apart over and over again and go home.
At least they got to win it.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of winning stuff, should we talk about the games this weekend? Or this next couple of days, I guess.
We should. I've got a game I want to talk about first.
Okay, hit me with it.
We had some international football played during the week.
So tell me about it. I know that it wasn't an official international.
It wasn't?
No, it wasn't. That's my understanding. And I don't know. I read that in the lead up to this game because it was played in Reykjavik, wasn't it?
The Hague.
The Hague?
Yeah, Netherlands versus Scotland.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking of a different game that they've got scheduled coming up.
It might be, but the one between Netherlands and Scotland was, to my knowledge, it was a ranked full international.
I hope it was, because,
I believe it has been. I haven't seen anything along the way to suggest that it wasn't, and
okay.
Because I saw reporting I've seen said it was.
I believe they were going to play a game in Iceland.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, but it wasn't going to be a full international, is my understanding.
Right, it was the same two teams?
I believe it was. I thought it was.
Okay.
Has it got it scheduled?
Well, I've got a senior international scheduled on Rugby League Project, obviously.
Okay.
But if it's not a official game, it may not be on the list. I'm just going to have a quick look on here. Scotland.
I'm sure it was against Scotland.
Results. No, we don't have it on there.
Okay. I'm sure they said they were going to have a look at the Netherlands playing in Iceland. See if that
Google search for it.
Yeah. Because you've got 15 different screens you can do it on.
Oh yeah, and they're massive.
Yeah.
Nothing there. No. International Rugby League. Do they have a website now?
The International Rugby League?
Yeah. When did that happen?
Yeah. Been on and off for the last fucking...
Oh, here's an important story on here that completely irrelevant that you need to know about.
Yeah.
The International Rugby League, they're looking for a commercial partner. Invitation to attend. Invitation to tender. So you need to get your business onto that.
Wouldn't it be fun? You just sit down with them and say, so what are you guys looking after? What are you guys looking for? And they're like, well, we want someone who's willing to run everything and do everything and set everything up and pay for everything and pay us a salary. It's like, right, okay.
You say, done, I've got $5. And it's $5 New Zealand.
Yeah, and they just need to dissolve it. The sooner they dissolve it, the better. I tell that to everyone on Twitter. I'm always saying dissolve the International Rugby League. What would happen that wouldn't be happening now anyway? Like, would we have World Cups cancelled over it? Would we have World Cups postponed? Would we have, like, a lack of internationals set up? Would we have promises that keep being broken? Would we have a lack of a calendar? Let's just dissolve it. We can do all of that without them. And that's my thoughts, my personal thoughts.
Yeah, I'm not finding information about the game being in Iceland.
Wow.
So that's anywhere.
That's weird. But, I swear I saw it on Twitter.
Oh, you probably did. There's no doubt about it. But
the International Rugby League tweeted about it.
But they probably retweeted it.
Yeah, they might have retweeted it. Like, yeah, they don't actually tweet anything that they've done.
But I've probably had people on edge for a bit. So Netherlands played Scotland in a full senior international match. And I did see on the International Rugby League that it was for ranking points.
Okay. Well, that's good.
And the Netherlands won 34-26.
It's fantastic that they won. And honestly, that's a real marker of where those teams are, where those nations are.
And from what I can see, it looks like the Netherlands side, if they're not entirely all, people who live and play in the Netherlands, then it would be nearly all of them. But there might only be one or two that aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And same goes for the Scotland side too. It looks like it's not their Scotland side that's got players from all over Australia in it.
An actual Scottish team is what you're saying.
Yeah. But
and
there's no one there with my surname in there, though, so I might be doubtful of that. But no, so the Netherlands won 34-26. So my question now to you, given Scotland lost that game,
yes,
is how many places do you think on the international world rankings Scotland has moved up because of that.
I don't believe Scotland will have moved up, but I 100% believe that somehow England will have moved up because of Scotland's loss. Because that's what happens every single time someone plays a game of international rugby league. Win, lose or draw, England somehow manages to move up.
You know why? I think I know why.
Why?
Because England were the first ones to play rugby league.
Yeah.
So therefore they get a credit. It's like you know, you had that Amway pyramid selling scheme.
What Amway pyramid selling scheme?
Hey, you know these things. Right? So, you know, every person who's selling, who gets another person on to buy.
I do not.
The credits go upwards.
I no longer hold Bitcoin, you fuck.
It's the same thing in rugby league. Every time a team other than England wins, England gets some credit for it because they started the game. Okay, they're running an international rugby league breaking Ponzi scheme.
How dare you? It was a legitimate investment in the blockchain, damn it.
England.
I can't find this information. I can't find any information about this game that I've talked about. I definitely saw it. Please, if you saw it, email us in and tell me I've not gone crazy because I saw it.
So I'm just stuck up on England being the Amway of international rugby league.
I had actually, while we're talking about English rugby league, because there's a lot of talk right now because it looks like the London Broncos are going to get turfed out of Super League because they won't qualify under the IMG criteria. And a lot of people are saying they should, fix up the criteria and let London stay in and all this sort of stuff. And I understand those sentiments, but, they put those criteria in place for a reason and they want to stick by them for a reason. And it seems strange that London wouldn't be given some sort of bonus just for the fact that they're not in Yorkshire and Lancashire, but whatever. I had a thought this week.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't the London Broncos apply to play in the rebranded French national competition, which is called Super 13? And I think that would be the perfect level for them.
I think that would probably be a very, very good idea.
Mm. The French competition has, I believe, the largest geographic footprint for a competition outside of Australia in terms of, international rugby league.
That would make sense because, obviously France is quite a bit bigger than England and New Zealand.
And it's a true national competition.
Yes.
The only team they don't really have there is a Paris team. If they had a Paris team, they'd have basically all the big cities covered. I think having London in there would be fantastic for the French competition, and I think it'd be really good for the London Broncos too.
It's interesting because that is one of the areas where England and France have a similarity in rugby league, and that is the capital city just isn't interested in it. But somehow the game has just survived there despite that.
Yeah, and I think that I think the thing is that it's hard to break through to so many people, especially, and I'm thinking of the London Broncos here, not so much Paris, but it's hard to break through to such a massive city, especially when you're roving all over that city. Yeah. Like the problem the London Broncos have is that they don't really have a home that's been their home for forever and a place they could really build it and say that's their own,
That's right.
But I think if they played in the French competition, I think it'd be fantastic for both sides of that.
If the French comp could get a team from Catalonia and a team from Spain in there as well.
Yeah. Well, look,
possibly even a team from Germany. Let's be honest, that's not that far of a call either.
I think the Catalan Dragons will eventually end up back in the French competition if the French competition builds to any sort of level. Because if
it can get some money, I'll tell you what, if the NRL's going to invest some money somewhere, that's a nice, easy way to get into the system because you're not taking on any insane financial dramas.
Yep.
and you're coming in at basically a ground level, so you don't have to invest a lot of money in there, and you can get things set up the way you want it to straight away, so that it can become self-sufficient pretty fast.
They play in our winter, or they play in their winter, so it's our summer.
That's right.
And a French winter isn't too bad compared to an English one.
And you could probably tie the TV rights deal in with for the NRL with that as well, and share a bit between the two comps.
Yep.
Which would help a fair bit. And you'd probably find that there'd be a lot of fringe NRL players or young guys would probably go there and play there. It's a good sort of testing ground in the off season.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing.
I think that, the English competition's been dying for 40 years, and we've talked about it ad nauseum, so there's no reason to go over that again. If the French competition can start getting some momentum, it won't take long, and I think it will be shocking how quick it will take. I think it would be really, really shocking to some people. Like, it would not take very much for the French competition to just get a little momentum, a little bit of money behind it, and they'd be off and racing. And because the English competition, I mean, I think we talked about it in the last episode, all their teams lose money, all of them, and they get propped up by owners.
Well, I mean, that's what I said before too. I mean, if you're a Australian-born rugby league player, played rep level, maybe not test level, but rep level, and you go, you know what, I'm going to go overseas and play rugby league over there for similar money to what I'm currently on. And if the French competition can provide that, so you've got to choose between the French competition and the English one. Are you going to go and move to St. Helens, or are you going to move to the south of France?
Yeah, exactly. That's why
or potentially, if they've got a Spanish team.
Well, that's why when we hear about players going to Super League, and you hear like, oh, they're going and playing for Wakefield, or they're going and playing for Wigan or whatever, and you're like, oh, why are they doing that? But when somebody goes and plays for the Catalan Dragons, no matter who it is, we're always like, oh yeah, I can see why they did that.
Yeah. That's the reason why we've always had a very strong flow of Australian players over to Catalan, more than any other team over there.
Yeah.
It'll always be the case.
Yeah.
At the moment, London's running. It's remarkable how London and Hull FC have been getting flogged all season long.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between them on the ladder, they're both on the same competition points. The points difference for London is minus 545.
Yeah.
And for Hull, it's minus 546.
Close.
They are atrocious this year. But yeah, it'll be nuts if Lee stays in Super League and London gets booted. Then you'll go, okay, you know what? Maybe there is something that IMG need to work on there.
Yeah, 100%. Look, the criteria should have just been a fact that London stayed in. I don't know how you do it, whether you say going by population base within a 10-mile radius, because you've got to factor in like how it's going to work for a lot of these Super League clubs that are very close to one another in the north of England. Even if you do a 5-mile radius of this, like London would be there. They would just be in the competition. But somehow it hasn't worked out that way.
Well,
so
I think the easy solution here that would have caused less ruckus for everyone, and you have this locked in place for just 2 seasons, right, is you make Super League go from 12 teams to 14. So the 2 teams who probably should be coming up, you bring them up anyway, but no one goes down. You go, right, you've got 2 years now where you're locked in here. If you don't get your shit sorted out, we will cut the competition back to 12. But if you can get yourself set up and you start moving in the right direction and everyone is getting better financially and with growth in the juniors and stuff like that, if you're all doing things better in that area, we'll keep it at 14. But if there's another team that comes along that's in the lower grades that is as good as you guys and one of your teams is just struggling too much, we're going to flip it. And I would have the pressure being not so much on-field results being the primary thing as it's always been, but on getting everything being the focus. On-field results are important, but they shouldn't be, which has been the case the whole time, the be-all and end-all.
Yeah.
Imagine if you just have, for argument's sake, Wigan just has a season where they just get absolutely fucking dominated by injuries.
They had one of those not long ago.
Yeah.
Do you remember that season?
Yeah. It wasn't too long ago. But imagine if they had one of those and they end up being like London HFC and they finish last and they get relegated. What's that doing for it? Not just for the Wigan club, but what's that doing for English Rugby League?
Yeah.
Because for that whole of next season, they're going to have probably half that squad because, as happens all the time with relegation, teams that get dropped down, they lose half their players because either they can't afford to keep them or they don't want to play in the lower grade. They want to play in the top division. So they all disappear. And so all you end up with is this stupid situation where you're not bringing a whole bunch of new players into Super League. You're just moving the teams around, but the playing pool stays kind of the same. So why are we constantly shuffling teams around?
Because they're stupid. That's the answer.
I mean, I have
complete apathy for the entire situation in Super League, and I'll tell you why. Because it's been fucking dying for 40 years. They've shuffled the fucking deck chairs on the Titanic for the last 20 years, and none of it works. And even this week, I saw somebody on fucking Twitter saying, what is the use of having a closed shop? Why would teams play games when they're down the bottom of the ladder at the end of the year? We should bring back the Super 8s. They're fucking stupid, Andrew, okay? They don't care. They don't know what they don't know, and I just don't give a fuck anymore. So let's hope Super 13 in France kicks off and gets going, because that's what we need, not some fucking old as shit competition with a bunch of fucking relic clubs running around that are propped up by local business owners who fucking own glass fucking glaziers and bricklayers and shit like that. You get people that can buy a club and dress them up like sluts from the 80s in leopard skin. Fuck it. Who gives a shit? English people don't care about Super League. That's why it's fucking dying. Why should I give a fuck about Super League either? Who gives a fuck? Let's go France. Let's get it going.
Sounds good. Speaking of old, decrepit, useless, and all those other words you said there, there's so many to name, and they all describe Paul Crawley as well.
Yeah, pretty much, eh?
That's a hell of a segue there.
What's that old idiot said this week?
He thinks the Dragons are mad to not jump on buying Gutherson.
Fuck it. Do it.
I'm here for it.
I'm ready for the Gutherson era in St. George.
Oh, bring it on.
Yes. Gutherson will look good playing for the Cutters.
St. George, this is in his article. St. George Illawarra would be mad not to jump on the Clint Gutherson take it or leave it offer at Parramatta.
Yeah.
Think back to Tyrrell Sloan's shocking attempt of a tackle on Raiders back row Hudson Young in the final round of the season. Okay. Okay, stick with me here.
Okay.
He's talking about how Gutherson would be a much better defender. It doesn't matter who the other person is. You just go with that. That tells you straight up why Shane Flanagan needs someone like Gutherson to come in and allow Sloan more time to develop.
Yeah.
More time to develop by kicking him out of the team.
That's the way you develop players, haven't you heard? You get them the fuck out of there. You want to develop as a first grader? Get the fuck out of first grade.
Stop playing football.
Yeah.
Oh.
I also love it, the fact that, like, he's bagging Sloan for his defence, which he can do. That's fair enough. But I don't know how many fucking historic tries I have seen Clint Gutherson watch from within a close distance that other players have scored against Parramatta. There's been a lot of them. He's going to be in a lot of photos of historic moments that he's witnessing from close up that the other team has been involved in.
There's more.
Okay.
He goes on about Jason Riles.
Yeah.
A comment that he says, and good on Jason Riles for saying it straight that he wants Gutherson to take on a Tyrone Wishart, Dylan Walker style role by shifting between dummy, half, and lock.
What? Jesus. Jesus.
Oh, he really wants Parramatta to get that spoon next year.
Yeah. I mean, we all do, but still.
Oh,
You don't say it out loud, you ham-faced bag cunt.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Well, I've said all along, there's only one position on the field where Gutherson can be useful. But let's go with that word for now, okay?
Okay.
And that is at 5'8", because he's not running plays, but he's also not having to do kick returns. He's not having to be at fullback where he can too frequently be found out of position. He can get himself more involved in the attacking plays. Yeah. He can get hidden a little bit better defensively. His ball play is good enough for him to be able to tie that roll down so long as he has a good halfback next to him. It doesn't have to be a world-class one, but just a standard halfback who can have a good kicking game and do the basic controlling of the game. Well, I'll say, for example, someone like Luke Keary.
Oh, right? See, I thought you were talking about playing for Wentworth, Phil.
Well, I mean, that could work as well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, where's Keary going next year? He's going over to France, isn't he? He can go there.
Keary, yeah. Yeah, he should go. You know what? I reckon Gutherson would actually go well in Super League.
Oh, no. Legit, he would absolutely tear up Super League. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But if he's going to play in the NRL any longer, I would have him at 5'8" before I'd have him anywhere else on the field. If he has to be in the 13, I can't think he'd be anywhere else.
I would not be in the Gutherson business. I think the way he prances around on that football field, the way he talks to his teammates, the high opinion that he has of himself for a player that has won absolutely nothing in his career, I just don't want to be in that business. And it's pretty clear that Jason Riles feels the same way.
Well, I think what Riles is getting at here is he wants Gutherson to be more involved in the ball playing.
I think he wants rid of him. I think he wants to get this fucking guy out of my club as soon as you possibly can. Because if he fucking talks to me that way, I will slap the fucking bitch out of his mouth.
The only problem is, have they got a ready-made replacement for him either at 5'8" or at fullback?
Fucking fullbacks are a dime a dozen. Well, the problem that they've really got is that Dylan Brown's not going to play next year because he's done his ACL.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's what I was thinking. Like, Gutherson definitely has to be retained for that last season. And he has to be a 5'8" because they've got no chance of us.
I think you come second last, all bets are off. This team that thinks that they were so awesome, they weren't. And Captain Fantastic over there that tells all of his teammates what to do and then fucking blames them when they don't tackle everyone in front of him. I'd just get rid of him. I just can't. I just don't. I'm not bothered with. Like, I'm sure he's a really nice guy. I bet he's a really nice guy. No, I'm not. He might be a complete arsehole. Well, no. Listen, he ain't no Jackson Hastings. He's probably a nice guy. Okay, but I just don't want to be in the business of Clint Gutherson. I think they need a new direction.
They do, okay. But I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna look at it this way, all right?
Okay.
Gutherson or not, do you see the Eels being much better next year?
No.
Right. So here's my argument: is if they let Gutherson go now, they still probably have to pay out a chunk of that contract, and it's worth a fair whack.
Yeah.
And if next year's already a fucking failure,
yes.
Take him because you don't have a 5'8" next year. Put him at 6 and get your next fullback in line ready to go. They get that 1 year. They might be struggling, whatever, around a team that's struggling, but they get that 1 year of experience. You've already got your Haas there. They just won't be playing because obviously one of them's out injured. Mm-hmm. So you can get the rest of your pieces together. You've got that whole year to get rid of the people that you don't want in the team, else in there. And then when his contract's up, you just don't offer him another one. You're not paying 450, 500 grand to have this bloke playing at another club.
See,
you just tying him down and get whatever you need to out of him and getting everything else set up and just going, you know what, we're just going to burn this year, get everything fucking sorted out, because it is going to take him a year to get that shit fixed.
I would rather just pay him to play elsewhere, and the money you save, upgrade the contracts of a couple of young players, and let them have the experience of playing fullback or 5'8" or wherever in the NRL. Because and Gutherson wouldn't be there a year later anyway, but at least you've got a full year's worth of first grade football that you can see what you've got at 5'8" or fullback out of your youngsters.
The other thing is, what if they can't get rid of him? They're stuck with him anyway.
Well, that's the problem.
So I just think it is easier for them if they just go, no, we'll keep him here, but he's going to be our 6 next year, and we just move on from there. But he will not be doing things his way. I'd be taking the captaincy off him, all that sort of stuff, and just saying, you're not calling any plays.
Yeah.
You're going to be told what the plays are from either the hooker or your halfback. That's it.
You can't get around the field like he does unless you are like unquestioned.
Yeah.
You've got to be one of those players that it's like, well, it's Cameron Smith that's yelling at me. What am I going to say to Cameron Smith? It's Darren Lockyer that's yelling at me. What am I going to say to Darren Lockyer? And it's not. It's just Clint Gutherson.
Yeah, and the John Bateman of fullbacks.
Pretty much, yeah. The John Bateman of fullbacks. Oh, shit. Look, John Bateman's won shit in England. Clint Gutherson hasn't done that.
Oh. Yeah, I don't think that that's much of a call.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I mean we saw what was happening to Parramatta.
Yeah.
When they lost that grand final, we got they need to start working on that roster sooner rather than later. The thing that they did, the first dumb thing they did was they got rid of the coach. That bloke was not the problem.
Well, I think the first dumb thing they did is they locked that entire team in that proved they weren't good enough.
Yeah, actually, no. The first dumb thing was signing Hodgson.
You know what? You're right. That
was where it went downhill.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That was the sign of a club that thought it just needed, that it was really, really good, and that it just needed to keep there or thereabouts with one key position when they signed him. And that was when they signed him, it was fucking ridiculous. It was never going to work. And that coincided with them returning to their form, which it just was not great. But the problem was they were locked into this team that was not great. And they thought they were great, but they weren't. When they were put to the test against great, they got whipped. And they just never recovered from it.
Yeah. That was such a bad move. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was insane when they signed him.
I mean, we just knew. We just looked at it going, what are you doing?
Like promote a youngster, anyone. Ugh.
And that's the thing. I mean, it's not like the difference between Mahoney when he played that last year at Parramatta before he left and Hodgson's best ever season at the Raiders. The gap in them wasn't massive. Like, Hodgson's best year was pretty damn good. We can't argue with that. But
I don't know. I could give you an argument.
But I was going to say, but the problem was his best season at the Raiders wasn't a year or two ago before he signed that deal with Parramatta. It was a few years before that.
Yeah, and a couple of season-ending injuries before that too.
Yeah, so it was pretty clear that the decline was there. And obviously, he wasn't young. So you just go, why would you go and take that punt when you've got a guy who has the potential to keep getting better in front of him? Whereas you're going to sign a bloke who's done the better bit already and things are going down. But it's fucking logic.
And they needed a hooker that was a running hooker. They needed somebody that was going to capitalise on the way that they hoped that their forwards would go forward. And Hodgson has never been that sort of player. He's the sort of player that, he gets up, stands up, takes a step, and then passes it. He's never been one of those guys to run out of dummy half a great deal. So, yeah, just terrible. Really bad stuff. And look, Parramatta, it's been talked about their football department and their recruitment and retention people, and talked about them for a long time. And once again, they made the poor choice, and they've made a lot of poor choices. And the funny thing is, they've made these poor choices in moments where they've had an embarrassment of riches compared to a lot of clubs, and they've made the wrong choice again and again and again.
You should always stick to your strong suit, I guess. And Parramatta's strong suit is just buying lots and lots and lots of players. Eventually it works.
Their juniors aren't bad, though. Like, their juniors are pretty solid bloody football players. And
they find plenty of good juniors.
Yeah, but the two things they can't do, they find it difficult to take good juniors and turn them into elite players. They don't do it at a high enough rate. And that means that they have got to cut a lot of these juniors pretty quickly. So you see a lot of guys that make their debuts for Parramatta, and they're gone in 18 months. And that's not really the way you should be doing it. There's an issue with their junior development at the elite level, that because the raw talent, like at the younger levels, is there without question. But when they get to that elite level, and almost like finishing school for a first grader, something's going wrong there. And look, I've said this for a long time now. Every NRL club, every single fucking one, no matter where they are, they should all be doing studies about what the Panthers have been doing. They should be buying all of the Penrith recruitment people, their junior people, all of them. Because
hang on, those people are all Phil Gould.
Just ask him. Phil Gould knew that fucking Greg Inglis was going to be a really good footballer. 6'4" Greg Inglis when he was 16, 110 kilos Greg Inglis when he was 16. He knew he was going to be a good footballer.
Yeah.
He could just tell.
Didn't sign him.
No, didn't sign him.
No.
Didn't sign any of these players that he knew were going to be good football players.
Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of the Channel 9 commentary in the finals.
Condolences.
I know. It's so bad. I mean, First of all, I don't know how many times Channel 9 needs to cut down to the field to ask what way the wind is blowing to Brad Fittler. But they do it a dozen times a game. I'm not even exaggerating. Like, he will tell you a dozen times a game what way the wind is blowing and how short they cut the grass. And then all Andrew Johns does is talk about the bodies of players and is terrified of everyone getting injured. Like, someone walks with a limp and he's like, oh, who's like an ACL? Oh, what's going on? He's gone. And the guy plays for fucking 80 minutes and he's fine. And then, like, they all sound like they're half asleep. And when Phil Gould's commentating, he just waits until, like, the game has been decided, and then he spends the rest of the game telling you how he knew it was going to go this way by the way that the players looked when they warmed up. It's really bad.
It is. I had to listen to it for one of the finals games, and I think the only way I could describe it, other than what your description was, which I've got to say is word for word, absolutely spot on, perfect, is I found it for the first time ever watching football. Listening to it was tiresome.
Yeah.
Just every time you hear another voice, you're going, oh, I know that voice. That person's going to talk about this. I don't care. Oh, I know that voice. That person, I don't care. Can someone just talk about what's being played on the football field?
I know, eh? Like, I think Matt Thompson's actually a pretty good footy caller.
He's not too bad.
Yeah.
I took a while to come round to him, but I do like his call. He is very good. I also wouldn't be surprised if he gets picked up by Fox at some stage.
Yeah, yeah. But I tell you what, the people around him that he's got, fucking knuckleheads. That at the halftime of one of the games, one of the sideline reporters put a microphone under the nose of Reid Marnie and asked him one question. I can't remember what the first question was, but the second question was, can you hear this crowd? Aren't they loud? And I just wanted Reid Marnie to go, wait a minute, who are all these people?
Hang on,
Where did they get here?
I thought it was a training run.
Yeah.
Where'd they turn it from?
If you've got two questions to ask a player, please don't ask them if they hear the crowd.
Can I ask, was it a former player who asked that question?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, thank fuck for that, because I thought that would be the height of stupidity.
No.
Because a former player, no matter what caliber of player, would know the answer to that question before they even fucking asked it.
Yeah, look, there are some bad things about Fox Sports coverage at times, but their worst day is better by a magnitudes than Channel 9's best day. It is fucking shocking. At least you know when you turn on Fox Sports to watch a game or two or a Super Saturday or something, at least you know they're going to take their coverage seriously. Yeah. At least you know that they're going to talk about what's going to happen on the field, or there's going to be things that you're going to hear that you're not going to like or stuff like that. But at least you know they're all taking their job seriously. You listen to Channel 9 and seriously, it's like they just dragged a couple of people out of the pub to start just gibbering about the game. And they don't talk about the game. How many times does Andrew Johnson need to talk about someone's thighs?
He does.
Seriously.
I mean, maybe that's just an affinity he grew after seeing, Adam McDougall's thighs.
All he does is talk about, look at that guy. Look at his stature. Look at his thighs. It's like, no, why are you doing that?
Oh boy, it's a punish.
Yeah, it really is. I don't know how I do it to myself.
Well, speaking of punishing, James Hooper.
Oh shit, he's still around, eh?
The West Tigers club said something, and so James Hooper had a sook about it.
Okay.
Because that's just what happens. The West Tigers could just say, "Oh, we've announced our, we're going to be having an annual general meeting." Yeah. Typical standard thing we've got to do. So, the fucking Tigers, everything mean. He just goes off and has a whinge and sook about everything. And this time he's had this is dumb. Okay, so during the week, the West Tigers put out a small little article thing, press release thing, saying, congratulations to Luke Brooks for playing his first finals games. They're just taking him.
The famous cuck article, yeah.
Yeah. You just go, but there's nothing negative in this.
I thought there was.
Nah.
I did.
What, from the Tigers?
Yeah, I didn't think it was negative from the Tigers, but I'd have some fucking balls and some pride. I wouldn't say anything about it. It's a different.
But that's the thing. Okay, is there's nothing negative here. The Tigers have done nothing bad by Luke Brooks by the statement that they made. They just gave him congratulations. I don't see that there's anything more than this. I too would just say, you know what, irrelevant. You don't need to say this. You just don't. You don't need to make it public. I don't understand why you made it public, but you know what? Fine, whatever. I don't see it being that big of a drama. But James Hooper, he comes out with I'm going to call this the Hooperism.
Okay.
And this is the Hooperism. This is his words. That will dead set do me. He says this every single time.
Yeah.
When will something literally do him so we don't have to hear this shit anymore?
I want to say someone that's no censorship. Hard censorship, people.
Fuck.
I'm not going to edit. I'm not going to edit this week.
No.
Yeah, have you ever watched that show, RBT? I like that show. It's a good show.
So every time I see James Hooper, all I hear is that noise where they're playing the RBT can and going around before they reveal what it is.
Oh, shit. Oh,
every
fuck.
Every time it just comes up with dickhead. It just goes on about it and banging on and banging. Just going, man, just. I don't know. When I saw this, went, okay, I don't care.
Here's the way I thought.
I didn't see it being that noteworthy that I needed to give an opinion on it. It was so weird, but pointless at the same time. I went, whatever, who cares?
I thought it was fucking pathetic by the Tigers. I can't imagine. It would have been like the Panthers, like wishing Brad Fittler and Matt Singh all the best in their first finals fucking win for the Sydney Roosters. I would have been.
I get all of
furious.
that. I get all of that, but at the same time, I'm just like, is it really that big of a deal? I just didn't think it was worth any drama. I would have thought, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't care.
I would have been so angry. I would have got kicked off of Twitter if it was my club.
Given this club, just over a year ago, decided to use a picture of an American soldier to depict an Anzac on a football jumper, I don't care about this.
I kept on thinking about how Luke Brooks said he likes barbecue, so they bought him a fucking $50 Weber barbecue as a going away present.
Oh, they didn't have to buy him anything. They did that anyway.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what they're doing all right. They're keeping the door open for him.
Well, it's like buying your ex-girlfriend flowers while she's fucking another guy. That's what it is.
Or actually just holding a hand while she's doing it.
Yeah. Just so...
I'm here for if you need any support, love.
Just leaning in and going, do you want a drink of water, sweetheart? Or something like that. Just, he seems to be taking it out of you a little bit there, darling. Is there anything that I can do? You want me to pat your forehead with a moist towelette? Like, I just thought it was really pathetic.
It is, but I just, at the same time, I don't think it's newsworthy. I just don't care about it.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah. It just seemed nuts. But anyway.
Moist towelette.
I've been down to KFC. Would you like a chicken nugget?
Yeah. I've just been down to Red Rooster, sweetheart.
I know. I remember you like the cheesy nuggets. I got you some.
Oh, far out. There's a visualization about our listeners didn't think we were going to give them.
We've been moving around, but I suppose it's kind of in tune with where we started the whole episode at.
That's a good point.
The dumb thing was, Hooper just kept going on with more and more examples. And you know what? You only needed to give one, and every other example is exactly the same. Your peanut.
Yeah.
He said, did we see parents put out statements when Kickow, Crichton, or any other player went and played finals for another team? He goes, did the West Tigers put a statement where Jason go, you've already made the point, dickhead.
Yeah.
You can stop fucking talking now. This is stranger than fiction. It's not. It's not stranger than fiction. Fiction can be as strange as you want it to be.
Yeah, go watch The Acolyte. That shit was weird.
Yeah. This was not stranger than fiction. This was just, You just ask, why bother doing that? And then that's it. Mm-hmm. He's going, I get the sentiment, but I honestly thought it was a piss take. When I saw it, I was like, this is not real. Someone is poking fun. Someone has hacked their website. Someone has done something. I was like, dude, like, seriously, go, like, put the beer down and drink some fucking water. Fuck. I'm more pissed off by the carry-on that he went on with than what the actual Tigers put out with that fucking article.
Well, you know what's been funny this week about the media in rugby league is that they haven't talked about the games.
No, and that's been part of the problem.
Everything else. Like
that
they talked about
that peanut has gone on and on about that fucking thing for so much that it's bombarded my fucking timeline. Everyone's chatting about this fucking thing. And it's like, look at the fucking content of what was said and the carry-on that's attached to it from the media and all the fans that have gone on board with it. And it's just going, it's not equal. The crime doesn't fit the fucking drama goes on with it. They've been talking and whinging more about this fucking statement by the West Tigers than they did about the issue with Josh Addo-Carr. Everyone's forgotten about that. But, fucking West Tigers taking Luke Brooks. Oh, Jesus Christ. I was like, come on, fucking settle down. What is this shit? There's a final series being played.
But they don't talk about footy. Like, they talk about everything else because they can't talk about the football.
It's fucking
they don't have the ability to do that.
It sucks because the good thing, probably not so much now, but the good thing about Twitter in the past is that you kind of do get, you don't, not so much being an echo chamber, but you do end up getting used to a lot of people talking about rugby league on your timeline and stuff like that. So you can see what was being talked about, and you can see a pretty varied view of response and stuff like that, and get a pretty balanced view of everything that was going on there. But now the way Twitter is, it's just all whatever the media says, and that's all blown up, and you don't see much else. You're just like, I don't want to be bombarded with that garbage.
Well, they had a story that they were doing this week where it's just made up one. The North Queensland Cowboys, they can't make it down from Townsville. There's no planes or anything. They could have to forfeit. And it's like, this isn't real. Like,
what?
Yeah, seriously. They ran that for a few days and people were like, oh, imagine if North Queensland can't make it down. It's like, none of this is real. This is not a real story.
How did they even come to that conclusion?
I don't know.
Oh, they don't have enough time to book flights. Like, they've been able to do it all year, though.
Yeah. That makes no sense, but they make up these stories like the whole thing about the Sharks not being able to play at home because their home stadium fills like 10,000 people. That story that story has run for 5 days, and it was never a story. They were never going to be able to play there. No. Everyone knew that. It's just not a story, but they ran it anyway, and you have all these people going, oh, why can't the Sharks play there? And you got to point out to Sharks fans that, like, you can't be playing out of a stadium that even the A-League would say is not up to standard. And it's just all of this talk is not about the games. It's about other shit because these people cannot talk about a fucking rugby league game.
Do Sydney teams – I'll have to check this. Are Sydney teams allowed to play at their legit home ground in weeks 2 and 3 of the finals? So I didn't think they were.
No, I don't believe that they are. I think that unless you're one of the teams that do have a big stadium, like say Parramatta, for instance, it would make sense that you could play it at Parramatta Stadium. Although I think if Parramatta was playing North Queensland, it might be at Parramatta Stadium. But if, say, it was Parramatta versus Penrith, you'd play it at the Olympic Stadium just to get more people there. But when your stadium can only hold 10,000 people, like you are never going to be able to have a big finals game there.
Oh, here we go. Week 3 of the finals last year, Penrith played the Storm at Stadium Australia.
Yeah. I think that as long as you've got a stadium that can hold, look, it's different in different circumstances. Like if you've got a 30,000 seat stadium, right, and it's Penrith versus North Queensland. North Queensland's not going to bring a heap of people there. I think that that's fine if you played it at Penrith Footy Stadium if it was, say, 28,000 seats or something. But, you know, if it's a game where you could get 50,000 in the crowd, move to the big stadium. It's fine. Like, that's why we built the bloody things.
I thought the rule, this is going back plenty of years, though, was that week 1 you got to play at your home ground, your legit home ground. Weeks 2 and 3, though, you had to play in the marquee venue in, you know, if it's Sydney, you have to play in the marquee venue in Sydney. And it was either the Sydney Football Stadium or Homebush. In Brisbane, if it was the Titans playing, you had to play at Lang Park, Suncorp Stadium. That sort of thing. Teams like the Cowboys and the Warriors could still play at the home ground because it was just too bloody far away.
Yeah.
Melbourne as well, obviously, because it's the only ground they could play at. But
what about
basically
Canberra?
a ruler in. Well, Canberra would as well.
Yeah.
The thing was, if it was basically around Sydney teams, like basically saying, we know we have the majority of our fans living in Sydney. So when A or two Sydney teams are playing each other or playing a finals match in Sydney in weeks 2 or 3, we want to have the biggest crowd possible for those games, which is why we don't have finals games for weeks 2 and 3 being played at Cogra, Shark Park, Leichhardt, bloody Campbelltown, whatever. You know, we're not playing at those venues. We want to get 30, 40, 50,000 at these games, not 10, 12, 15, 20. And obviously that's why.
Look, I think that it all comes down to, like, the stadiums are getting better across the league, which is fantastic. But, you know, there's a few of them that just shouldn't be in the competition. And, you know, you mentioned Leichhardt there. Manly's trying to get their stadium up to standard. We'll see if they can keep doing that. Cogra's not up to standard that you would want for a finals game. Parramatta's a beautiful stadium. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think that Penrith, when it's fully upgraded, will be on the very edge of what you would want. And I'll leave that to our listeners to decide if they should have them sorts of games there or not, because obviously I'm going to be biased. But when you're looking at Shark Park, it's like this. It's just not even a question, and it was never going to be allowed. And you know, that's it. Like, I can't. And the Shark CEO coming out and having a whinge about it. I don't know why. If it was up to me, the Sharks would play at the SFS full time.
I believe this whole conversation about the Sydney teams playing at the biggest Sydney venue did actually come about through a Sharks home game for week 2 of the finals, and they weren't allowed to play it at their own home ground because I think it might have been against the Roosters or another Sydney team.
Yeah.
And actually, it might have been the Roosters, and they had the home ground advantage, but they had to play at the Roosters' home ground because the Roosters' home ground was the football stadium.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it all started. They're like, well, no, we're not going to play it in front of 15,000 people.
Look, the Sharks, they own their stadium. I think the capacity right now is 13,000. They've reduced the capacity to build out that stadium by the other developments that are there. So the club needs to bite the bullet and say, we're going to sell the rest of the property, whether they develop it or like the rest of it or whatever. Sell the rest of the property and move to the SFS, because there is no future at Shark Park. They're not going to be able to build it themselves. They haven't got the money. If they do want to build something themselves, it's still not going to be big enough, no matter what they do, because you're not going to be able to have all of these apartments with views and stuff and then build a fucking giant grandstand in front of them. That's not going to work. They can't do that. So they made their decision, but now they have to go all in. They need to sell off, or not sell off. They need to use the land that Shark Park is on and just move to the SFS and try to become a bigger club than they will ever be at their current venue. And if that's not what their goal is, then what is their goal? Because if their goal is to be a team that is in the National Rugby League, where every other stadium is getting bigger and better, and they are getting 13,000, that leads to death. That is going to kill them. That won't happen. They're just going to die. So they need to work out what they want to be as a club.
Yeah.
Because it sucks. I don't want them to die.
I don't know what was supposed to be going on with that development either. Talk was supposed to be finishing the end of 2024, but I've heard nothing for years about whether that was going to happen or not. And how much it was going to be, what the capacity was going to change to.
Well, they said, like, all of the other building around the stadium Like you can see on game day, there's people watching the games from their balconies, which would be amazing if you're a footy fan. Like even as a Panthers fan, I would find that awesome to have one of those places.
Oh yeah.
And this idea that Sharks fans think that they're going to build a giant grandstand in front of those views, that's not how it works. So by building those places, that decision's been made already. They just need to finally make the rest of the decision. Because in the best case scenarios that you could have for their current stadium, going by, cutting off the least amount of views as you can from the people that live there, and the best case scenario is to have the smallest stadium maybe in all of professional sport in Australia. And that's only going to lead to one thing, and that's the demise of the Sharks.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if I said to you, there's an NRL club and they own their stadium, but they will only ever, in the best case scenario, might be able to have a capacity of 15,000 seats. What is the long-term prospects of that club?
Yeah, it's not great. Because the first thing you got to think is, okay, that's going to be your second home ground then. Like Belmore is. Like you've got to find another regular home ground, and you can play like 3 home games at that Shark Park venue every year if you want.
Yeah. Look, fucking Leichhardt has a bigger capacity.
Yeah, mind you, it's easy to do that when you don't have to worry about putting people on seats.
That's true, or toilets. Or
and you can make them sit in trees and stuff like that.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about, white ants. Stuff like that. But it is crazy to think that Leichhardt has quite a bit more capacity on Shark Park.
Yeah.
I mean, North Sydney Oval has a bigger capacity. Everywhere does.
Yeah, although I don't think North Sydney Oval's ever been a capacity.
Yeah, I wonder what would I bet okay, let's do this. I bet the biggest crowd at North Sydney Oval is 21,000 people. For a North Sydney Bears game I'm talking about.
Okay. I was going to say, the next question is going to be, what year was that record made?
I would say it would have been in the 90s.
Let's have a look here. Let's see. We'll have a look in the NRL history.
Okay. Yes.
So we're looking at one season. Do we have crowd on here? Let's have a look. Biggest crowds in games at North Sydney Oval. 23,089.
Oh, in 89?
No, 23,089.
Oh, okay. And when was that? Was that 19? I'm going to say 1990. Ooh, I've got 3 years in mind.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 1995.
Oh, 1994.
Against, let me guess.
Yep.
Against, well, you'd think it'd be against Manly, wouldn't it?
It was against Manly.
Yeah.
And then they had 22-5-36 the year before against Canberra.
I was thinking Canberra.
22-0-3-2 in 91 against Manly.
Yeah.
21-3-7-9 in 96 against Manly. All of their top 10 crowds are in the 90s.
Yeah, there you
go. Only 7 times did they get to 20,000. And they've been playing at that ground since 1912.
Where did they play in 1908?
Well, see, there was no actual home grounds in 1908.
Oh, okay.
So we had Birchgrove Oval, the Agriculture Showground, and Wentworth Park.
Mm-hmm.
That was basically it.
Okay.
And then 1909, a few other grounds came in, not many, but it wasn't until 1910, 1911 we started to see North Sydney Oval, Metas, St Luke's, some of those other ones come in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was North Sydney Oval though has been around in the NRL, or had been around the NRL probably longer than most other venues.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure their first game was 1910.
What would be the longest serving venue? It's got to be Leichhardt, right?
Leichhardt's been going since 34, 35.
Yeah. And then after that, would it be Brookvale after that now?
Well, the SCG, because it was being used up until last year. I don't know if it's been used this year.
Yeah.
Has this SCG been used this year?
I don't think so. I don't remember it.
I don't think it has.
Which is good. It's a terrible ground to watch footy at.
See, the first premiership game was played there in 1913.
Mm-hmm.
Have a look at it. It's going to show me the last one here. 2023. So it hasn't been used this year.
Okay. That's good. It's not a good ground for footy.
Yeah, it isn't. We always find a way to veer off into stats.
I know. Hey, yeah. It's great.
I wonder if that's by design. Am I just subconsciously doing that?
We start talking about footy history and then all of a sudden it's like we go down the rabbit holes.
Let's have a look. I'll have a look on here to see which grounds have been used the longest. Yeah, SCG, 1913 to 2023. Trying to find ones that have been most recently used. Leichhardt, 1934 to 2024. Belmore, 1936 to 2024.
Belmore. Forgot about Belmore, yeah.
Brookvale, 47 to 2024. Cogra, 1950 to 2024.
Yeah.
Penrith Park, 67 to 2024.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, hey?
Shark Park, 68 to 24. And then takes a bit of a jump forward. Wynn Stadium since 1982. Campbelltown since 83. The Knights home ground.
Yep.
1985 it was first used in the Premiership.
Oh, what does it say what game that was?
Yeah, it would have been, I'm going to go off the top of it. I think it was St George versus Canberra or something like that.
All right.
Let's have a look. Canberra St George, 1985. There you go.
Nice. I feel like, was there something weird with that ground where, did that move a little bit? Like, I feel as though with that stadium in the very early days, there was something about the, its footprint moved or something as it was developed. I could be wrong.
Didn't it have other sporting complex nearby it, which has been knocked down, removed, whatever, as the stadium's got bigger and upgraded over years?
I think that it had like a trotting track, maybe the other side of the grandstand, something like that.
Let's see what Wikipedia says.
Yeah.
Work began on the stadium on December 1, 1967, and was officially opened by Queen Elizabeth II in 1970. The playing service back then was originally oval-shaped to allow both codes of rugby, soccer, and cricket to be able to make use of it.
Mm-hmm.
The Knights secured a lease on the stadium in 1986 and converted it from an oval to a rectangle layout.
That maybe is what I'm thinking, hey?
Yeah. In 1992, that's just the naming sponsor. No, that's pretty much it. It doesn't look like it's had much change. Before the redevelopment, the stadium had a capacity of 28,000. The ground attendance record for a sporting event at the venue prior to the redevelopments was 32,000, which was in 1995. That just seems crazy, 32,000 there.
Packed in there into the old stadium, yeah.
But it looks like it hasn't changed much about where the footprint of it is. It's changed the shape of it.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking about, hey?
Yeah. It could be wrong. I mean, we are using Wikipedia as a rough guide there, so who knows?
I have a feeling that at the back of the grandstand, I think that it sort of was attached to a trotting track or something like that.
It's very possible, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's still there anymore, but
hey, next year, Leichhardt's going to get to its 600th premiership game.
Far out. It's at the risk of going down another stats rabbit hole. What's the most played at venue then?
The SCG.
Okay, how many?
1,162 games.
Jeez.
And next is the old Sydney Sports Ground with 827. You could probably make an argument and say that venue has had the most because the old Sydney Sports Ground became the old Sydney Football Stadium, which has then become the new Sydney Football Stadium.
Are we going to do our great debate, by the way, about stadiums?
Well, I haven't had a chance to speak to let's call him, I don't know if he's religious, we'll just call him Lord.
I like calling him the Breaker.
The Breaker.
Yeah, he breaks websites.
I will say this, we did have a bit of downtime on the website this week.
Mm-hmm.
We had to change to an upgraded server.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happened that it coincided with a bunch of work he was doing with other drummers at his own job.
Oh, jeez.
I think one of the updates I saw of when he got the website up and going again was at like 3:30 something in the morning.
Ugh.
And he had got home, I think, at 11 p.m. at night from his actual job.
Yeah.
So, yeah, poor bugger's not getting much time doing actual rugby league stuff on the website of late.
Yeah.
But we have been doing some major back-end stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had to because there's a lot of data that has been recently added, and there's a lot more to be added in. Sitting there waiting to be added in, I will say too, not just pie in the sky stuff. The data's ready to start getting dumped in.
Yeah.
That's why this had to be necessitated. So yeah, apologies for some of the downtime there. I think it was might have been about 10 hours or so. It might have been down, but it's all up and running now and firing, I must say. It's flying through stuff now.
Nice. I mean, I was totally disgusted by the downtime, but still.
You know what the crazy thing was about the downtime? We put a tweet out.
Yeah.
To say there'll be some downtime. We're doing some maintenance with the server, all sort of stuff. Apologies for the inconvenience. And it was possibly one of the biggest days we've had for followers.
No way.
We told people there's going to be downtime on the website. Andrew Voss retweeted it.
Yeah.
He retweets most of the stuff we do. He loves the website. I don't blame him. But yeah, we had like a ton of followers come on because we told them that the site was down.
That's so strange, hey?
That's social media for you.
Yeah.
As soon as we told it was back up and running again, no one followed us.
We should maybe test that out, hey? Do something with the
just tell them we're not going to be recording a podcast for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, or be like, all of the podcasts will be down for the next unforeseen number of moments, but you can check, and when it's back on, you should be able to resubscribe and see how many new subscribers we get.
Oh, if that works, fuck me. That'll be nuts. But no, it's all perfectness.
Excellent.
Flying, mate. Yeah, so that's we've got a few stats done there. That's pretty handy.
That's fantastic. Let's talk about these games that are coming up.
Yeah, we've got 2 games.
Yeah.
Where's my little bits of stats? I found it hard to get stats for these games. These two matchups gave me absolutely fucking nothing.
Really? That's interesting.
All right, so what do we got here? Sharks v Cowboys. This one gave me a little bit, but not much.
Okay.
Cowboys have won 5 of their last 7 finals games played in Sydney. They've also won 9 of their last 13 finals matches all up, which goes back to 2015. The last time the Cowboys won back-to-back games against the Sharks was in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, the Sharks have dominated, winning 17 of 23 games. The Cowboys have won 9 games combined at the old and new Sydney Football Stadium since they joined the comp in 1995. So that's over 27 games played there.
Mm-hmm.
Cronulla have won 9 of their last 15 games at the same venues, going back to 2010 in 15 games.
This is an interesting game because the Sharks failed miserably last week, and Nicho Hynes once again come under the spotlight. And there's been a lot said about Nicho Hynes and his ability to play well in big games, and he just doesn't. Like he really, when the pressure's on, he doesn't play well. He come out and said that he is not listening to all of the criticism, that his main goal is to be a good person and make people smile and then be a good footy player. He's not listening to any of the sound going on. He's deleted all of his social media stuff. And him saying all of that to me is an absolutely horrifying sign that he is. It's like the worst shit I wanted to hear from him. And I think what it comes down to is that this is a young bloke that coming to first grade as a fullback, and he had a little bit of a history as being able to play in the halves as a junior. The Sharks got him as a half, paid him big half money, and in the regular season, when they're on a bit of a roll, it works all right. But when the pressure's on, he hesitates. He panics. And I think it's because he's just not a halfback. And that's fine. Not many dudes on planet Earth are good halfbacks in the finals. It's not anything against him. I think if you put him at fullback in this game, you wouldn't have to think twice about his like what he's going to do in the game. He would just go out there and play football. But as a halfback, he's just not a halfback in big games. And we've seen at Origin level, we've seen it time and time again for the Sharks. And I think that by playing him out there at halfback, and you could see it last week, like he just wasn't doing the job at all. And it's really set up for this game for him to, this could be one of those games where it's like a shattering game for not only the Sharks, but for him in his role as a halfback. What do you think about it?
I agree with some of that.
Yeah.
I think he should be playing at 5'8", because
he's a ball runner.
No matter what no matter what criticisms there are some things where we can all agree on. He is a talented ball player and he is a ball runner first and foremost. That's why he was tried at fullback first.
Yeah.
Right. So, and he's definitely got the skills. And I would put him at 5'8" because he's not first receiver. He's not calling all the shots. The kicking game doesn't rely solely on him because I find that when the pressure's on, his kicking game goes bad first. Mm-hmm. And everything else becomes a struggle after that. Mm-hmm. I would have him at second receiver or put him at 5'8" so that he gets called on and gets injected into the game when the halfback wants him injected into the game. And he's not being forced to control things. And I think that would be much better for him. Now, in saying that, the other thing that I've noticed that he does in big games is he changes the way he plays because he thinks he needs to, because the situation demands it. And as soon as you, as any football player, change the way you play for whatever reason, you automatically, more often than not, will go wrong. And I see him do this time and time again. He does it playing finals footy. He does it playing rep footy. He goes from being this bloke who takes on the line first and plays pretty flat when passing too sometimes. And usually he does have good speed off the mark. He stops doing that. And when he starts playing these finals matches, he starts being a bloke who's trying to organise too much. He's over-managing what's going on around him. And you'll also find that when it gets time for him to kick, for some weird reason, he has zero time to get a good kick away. Mm-hmm. And when he does get a good kick away, like a long kick downtown, it's not towards a corner. It's usually in the middle of the back there somewhere, and it's typically always straight down someone's throat with no kick pressure on them.
Yeah.
And it's little things. Like if you're going to kick long, you need to find the ground. Simple thing. If you're not going to find the ground and your kick chase isn't going to get there on time, sadly, the other option is you've got to put it up high, allow your chase to get there. Right? You want to make sure that, and I know most people know this, okay, but you want to make sure when you put a kick in, especially if it's your kick chase isn't going to get there on time, you want to try and make it so that the forwards and all the other players of the opposition who are standing around that no man's land in the middle of the field, they have to go all the way back down to get back on side so they can help their team get out of the red zone. Right? That's why kick returns are so important, because if your forwards can just linger around and have a bit of a spell while your fullback or your wingers bring it back right to where you're standing, they don't have to run back. They can just dawdle back and be on side by the second tackle.
Yeah.
So they get a rest. And you're doing that every 3-4 minutes. You don't need to substitute your forwards off as frequently, and you're going to get more value out of them. But if you can keep turning them back around or keep them on the back foot or have the defenders on them straight away, then those forwards have to run all the way back downfield in order to do another hit up to come all the way back. And that's how you start to take advantage of the field position. And I find that aspect of Hines' game goes missing big time when he's playing in a bigger game. And I feel it's because he changes the way he plays, not because he's coached to or because he's told to, but because he thinks he has to. And as soon as you do that, especially with your kicking game, you're dead in the pan. You will not survive. You'll just constantly fuck up. And the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's not even a question. Like
no.
I've seen people saying, oh, he's not that bad. And it's like, no, that we're beyond needing to justify this now. We've got a big sample size and it's not even a question now. Now this is a real problem. And that's what worries me about going into this game, because the Cowboys are going pretty well right now. And they've got a lot of dudes that are very, very experienced in all sorts of big games. And I just think that, like, I feel a little sorry for the Sharks, because I think that they're playing overall as a team not too bad. They're doing a lot of things right. But when you haven't got a halfback, and they basically haven't got a halfback when Hines is out there, you're not going to win a finals game. You're not going to win a big game. And there's just so much pressure on this young dude. And I just think that I just personally think he's out of position. And
yeah,
this feels like we're leading into, and look, he might go out there and play okay and they win, right? It's still going to hang over their team, but I've got a feeling this game in particular against this opposition, with their experience, it feels like, and they're in Sydney, they're going to be in front of mostly their own fans. It feels like it could be one of those games where it's like, oh, this is not going to happen ever. Like almost like where we got to with the North Sydney Bears in the late 90s, where we're like, oh, this is a bit of an issue. And then it was like that game against Parramatta, where Parramatta just destroyed them, and it was like, oh, this is never going to happen, is it? I think that this could be that game for Hines as a halfback that's going to lead your club to anything special. And I don't want that for this dude. Like, he's a young guy, and that's what upsets me about it. The thing is, you can't move him into fullback because Kennedy last week was outstanding.
Oh, man. Kennedy's been great for the last few seasons. He's amazing. You can't move him.
No. So, and like, you could play him at 5'8", but he's on huge money.
He is
money.
That's the thing. You can justify it if he's playing at 5'8".
Yeah.
I think Trindle has shown that he can control the team. His kicking game is pretty consistent as well.
Yeah.
And look, it doesn't have to be world class. He just needs to do more of the kicking than Hines to take that pressure off Hines. Because if Hines doesn't have the defence constantly on him all the time because he's the halfback, he'll have that little bit of space. It'll just free him up a little bit, take a bit of that pressure off, and encourage him to play his natural game instead of trying to make him think he has to play something different. That would help. I think there's other little things too that the Sharks do during the year that I didn't see them do last week. And one of them is they weren't using Brayley running from dummy half late in the set as much.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that they had done pretty well during the last few years, because he'd go for a dart on the third, sometimes fourth tackle, and just get the defence on the back foot, and then have a hit up or something like that, or play the ball wide. Just keep the defence constantly going backwards, and that means that by the time Hines gets the ball on the last, he's not being swamped. He's got a bit of room, a bit of space to do stuff. And I didn't see much of that at all for the Sharks last week. And again, it's something that they do in these finals matches a bit. So that is concerned. I think the Sharks will win this week, but I can't see them winning next week.
Well,
at all. It doesn't even matter who they're playing next week. I can't see them winning next week, but I definitely see them winning this week, because that Cowboys side last week, I'm not convinced by that performance.
Well, the winner of this game goes through to take on the Panthers. And as a Panthers fan, the Cowboys worry me 10 times more than the Sharks do. The Sharks will get buzzsawed by the Panthers, whereas at least the Cowboys, they can do some things. They do weird things. Yeah, you've got the spectre of, and I think Taumalolo could have a big game in this one, but you've got the spectre of Taumalolo, his knees feeling good, and so all of a sudden he's run for 250 metres. Drinkwater, as much as I've taken the piss out of him for forever, ever since he was Matt Daylight, he can do some weird shit that all of a sudden he scores a try and you're like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. I'll say this, okay. The thing that irritates me about the Sharks, is that they actually have the squad, the humans on the field. They've got the squad who could actually legitimately challenge the Panthers and the Storm. But for some weird reason, the way they play and the structure that's set up around them just denies them that chance to be competitive enough.
See, I disagree.
It's not entirely. How do you think about it? They got the edge forwards. They are on par with what the Storm and the Panthers have got.
I don't think so. I don't agree.
I find it hard to argue that they wouldn't be. But the problem I've got with them is they often, their second rows will often run towards the sidelines.
Yep.
Right? And the Melbourne and Penrith defences, when they see that, they stop rushing up because they go, you know what? He's running into our defender that we don't have to have on the field, and that's the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
So they let him run there because he's running the winger out of the play. So they've immediately cut off their overlap that they could have created. The winger only has one option, that's to come back in field, but there's already a defender waiting for him. And so they squash him either into touch or the play dies. And it dies with everyone in the middle of the field standing still, because they see their ball runner running towards the sideline into defenders. So they go, okay, this play's died here. So everyone stops, which means the Panthers' defense has now got an extra 2 meters on the next play, and they squash them in the next play. And the Storm do exactly the same thing. It's one play. They invite them to go wide, and then they use the sideline to kill that play and the one after it, because they've now got momentum for the next set, and so for the next play. So it's little things like that, but you just see it happen over and over and over again with the Sharks, especially when they're playing against teams with smart defenses. And that's all the Storm and Panthers have ever done against the Sharks. Is just invite them to go wide and then just push them towards the sideline, knowing that they're going to take it.
See,
I don't know why they think they keep getting by, because they never do. I never see them turn it back inside. They just keep going and go, oh, you.
The only player in the Shark side, as a Panthers fan, that I would have any concern when they get the ball is Talakai, because he's a big dude. You saw last week he played a real good finals game, Talakai. The problem is, as a centre against a team like the Panthers or the Storm, when he's got the ball, he's going to be difficult. When he's playing defence, he's a giant target because he's a big dude.
And he's got no lateral movement.
Yeah, and he's going to be playing against and it's just footwork. It's a footwork thing. Like if I'm an outside back and I've got a big dude like him, I'm terrified when he's got the ball. But when he's got to defend, I'm just licking my chops. I'm loving it. And not one other player in this team worries me if I'm as a Panthers fan. Whereas I can look at this Cowboys team and I'm like, you know, Nanai can bust through the line and have a rampaging try. Cotter is going to give 100% or the entire time. As I said, Taumalolo, everyone should be horrified for the game that Taumalolo is going to put one on someone eventually. You know, his knee, if he was a couple of years older, I think he'd retire his knee so bad. Drinkwater is another one. Like he pulls things out of his ass. Kyle Felt pulls things out of his ass. There's always the prospect that Valentine Holmes will turn up at some point this year. So
the problem though is that the Cowboys, well, especially looking at last week, all of that stuff was completely nullified by the Cowboys' kicking options all game last week.
Yeah,
because every time they just sent it high and long to the Knights wingers, but the kick chase was never there.
Yeah, and look, that Knights team, it was really like, for all the shit that Ponga gets, he played his ass off to try and get them that win, and it really should not have been as close as it was. And it comes down to the things you're talking about, like just being able to put a team away when you've got that dominance over them. And I tell you what, we saw it with the Bulldogs even worse, where that Bulldogs game versus Manly, they completely dominated Manly for probably 60 minutes. It should not have even been close, and they lost.
Yep.
And it just shows that it doesn't take much in the finals. That's why it's so friggin' difficult to win them. You know, if your kicking game's a little bit off, all the go forward in the world doesn't matter. If your last tackle options are not great, they've got to be great. And that's the thing for the Cowboys. Their last tackle options have to be great, because the Sharks are going to they're going to play bloody solid football in this game. So, but I just think that the Cowboys have more upside to them. And I can see where this game turns into a pretty bad Nico Hines instance. And I hope that it doesn't, because he's a nice young bloke.
I can't remember.
From a sporting point of view, from a pure sporting point of view, this is fucking Jason Taylor. Edge of Jason Taylor shit. You know what I mean?
I don't think I've seen Hines, though, have two really bad games back-to-back at club level. That's why I think the Sharks will win this week, but they won't the week after. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be surprised if the week after, that game against Penrith, is the one where he's exposed bad.
Yeah. Well, look, and
so we're kind of in agreement, so I'm just delaying it by a week.
You're delaying it by a week, yeah. It's going to, and the thing is, like, it doesn't happen often when you get it's not even a performance, it's like an instance where that happens, where it's like, oh, this will never happen, and we all know it, and he knows it, and the opposition knows it, and everyone in the crowd knows it, and the referee knows it. And that's why I'm trying to think of the moments, and it really has been, it's been North Sydney in the 90s. It was Jason Taylor as a player. I'm trying to think of other times. Like, there's not very many of them.
No.
Can you think of any others?
Probably the Raiders in any time in the 2000s.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the Raiders, yeah. Although they got to that grand final and you thought, man, that they're doing everything they need to do, but they just didn't have it. They didn't have that extra gear you need.
Because, I don't know, I thought that Raiders team in 2016 should have made the grand final. They choked bad in the final series.
Yeah, they did.
There's not many.
No.
Many.
And I guess just have seen it in Origin a little bit.
Probably
players.
Balmain in the 80s. How can you have a team that good not win a premiership?
Yeah, because you lose because it used to be you had to lose a premiership to win one. And that was the thing people felt. So you lose the first one. I guess when they didn't win that second one, and it felt like that was supposed to be when they won it, and then it fell apart so quickly too.
That was their window.
Yeah,
it slammed shut. Move on to the next game: Roosters versus Manly. Roosters have won 8 of their last 12 games against Manly since 2018. Manly, though, have won 21 of their last 36 games against the Roosters since 2005.
What about since 1998?
Roosters have won just 2 of their last 8 finals games, and Manly have won just 3 of their last 10. But the big stat here, Luke Brooks undefeated in finals football.
Yeah. The Roosters get back Victor Radley, whose shoulder is still not great. Like I think he had a fractured scapula, and he's coming back early. So that seems silly to me.
Okay, so that means that for at least 10 minutes of this game, Manly's going to have an extra player.
Pretty much. And the other thing is that Andrew Johns will be focused on his scapula, anything to do with his legs and his thighs, his buttocks.
Meaty.
Yeah, he's going to be really focused on that. Jared Hargraves is back, so once again, there's another.
Oh, geez, that'll be down even further.
You know, I'm sure we'll hear what a real tough guy he is until such time as he gets fucking steamrolled by the opposition in a game that matters. Tom Trbojevic shouldn't be playing. We've never seen Tom Trbojevic have a big finals moment, and I think that this final series has been very much the final series of there's a difference between being good in a regular season for clubs and players, and there's a big difference between being good in the finals for clubs and players. And we've seen that really played out in this final series. I think Manly's going to win this one.
Yeah, Brooks will win.
Brooks will win it on his own. He'll carry him.
Yeah, DC will just be a passenger in this. It'll be all Brooks.
I haven't rated the Roosters all year. I still don't rate them. Penrith just, I don't think they got out of second gear against them. Beat them pretty easily. I just think that, and Manly, as I said a couple of weeks ago, I think that they've got the ability to pull a performance out of their ass where they can beat anyone. And I think that they showed a little bit of that in the second half of last week's game against the Bulldogs, which they had no right to win. And I think they'll just do it full stop against the Roosters.
Luke Brooks is on a mission to get the Clive Churchill medal. None of you Penrith boys are going to do anything about it.
I tell you what, if we're playing Luke Brooks in the finals, I'll take that.
Well, I reckon we should probably wrap this one up.
Okie dokie.
What do you reckon? Because it's almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I've got to go to bed soon.
Yeah. You do have stuff to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
So who do you think is going to win that one, by the way?
I'm going Manly on that one. I agree with you. I think if the Roosters were going to do anything of value in the finals to back up the way they performed in their attack during the year, they needed to put in a good showing against Penrith. Not necessarily beat them, but put in a good showing, and they failed miserably.
Yeah.
Miserably. And Manly played the same footy they have all year. They've been consistent in that style. It hasn't always produced consistent victories and win streaks, but they've never been like completely out of the picture or, you know, people going, fuck, they're not going to make it this year. They've always been thereabouts. So I expect more of the same from Manly. And, yeah. I don't know. The other thing, too, is if you start changing up your lineup in the middle of the final series to bring players back, not always great either. And that's what the Roosters are doing.
Yeah. And it feels like that we're going to see, I mean, Penrith and Melbourne are just sitting back relaxing, which are the two worst teams that you could give a week off to. And it feels like It'd be so shocking if it wasn't Penrith Melbourne Grand Final. They just seem so far ahead.
Absolutely. It feels like we're wasting our time right now.
It kind of does, yeah. Especially on, like, in terms of just getting to the Grand Final, I just can't see Penrith not being there. I could see Manly pulling one of those performances out of their ass and maybe being like, holy shit, they beat Melbourne? Fuck. I can't see that happening to Penrith, though.
No.
And that's nothing against Melbourne. That's just, if Manly was on the other side against Penrith, I'd say the same thing. It's like, fucking hell, what the fuck did we just watch? Manly beat Penrith. Like,
Manly has that in them.
Yeah. So that's the only interesting thing that I'm seeing in these games.
That's right. We want to see Luke Brooks go hard.
We want to see. we just like to watch. That's all.
That's all we want to do. We'll hold his. You can hold his hand, and I'll get the moist towelettes.
Look, I don't know where he is right now. He's not answering his phone. But that just works for us, you know.
It does.
We just like to watch. I'm sure, you know, he's having fun right now, and it's fine. It's completely fine. This doesn't affect me at all.
Oh,
it just works for us. Don't judge.
Don't judge. People are so quick to judge.
I'm just sitting at home. I'm not lonely.
Oh dear. I'm going to cry myself to sleep.
Yeah.
Well, we've started out with Baby Oil, and we've ended up with Luke Brooks.
You got to when you get off here, you got to Google Freak Out and see what comes up.
Is that one of those ones I do in the incognito mode?
No, it's all over the news. I knew you wouldn't have any idea what I was talking about, but it's quite
I do carry on like an old man because I'm just not online that much anymore. Well, that'll be fun. And what else was there? Just quickly, there's talk that Daniel Ricciardo might be having his last race this weekend.
Good, the guy's a loser. He's
about to get the boot. The worst part about it is he's probably going to get replaced by a Kiwi.
I was flicking through my YouTube thing the other day, and it come up, and it was a video, and it was a video of Mark Webber talking about Daniel Ricciardo, and I was like, "Fuck you! You would know all about it, wouldn't ya?"
I think the other thing that worries me about Mark Webber's current involvement in Formula One is that he's the manager for Oscar Piastri. And Piastri is showing a lot of skill and talent at the moment.
Yeah, he's a little bit scary, Piastri. He's fucking good. I
like watching him, and he's like the Kimi Räikkönen as far as personality goes. And Aussie Kimi Räikkönen.
He's a little bit. He's got, and I say this in a nice way, and this is what you want. He's a bit autistic. All right?
Yes.
Got a little bit of that about him. But that's what you want in a race car driver. And that move that he pulled off on I think it was Leclerc.
It was.
Oh, my God. Even Leclerc in the after-race thing, he was like, man, I thought I was good. It was a move. And he's done a few of those sorts of moves. It's very cool to see.
Well, there's one he did on Lando Norris in the opening lap at Monza a couple of weeks back. During the second chicane? Yeah. Oh, fuck. Look, Norris didn't know whether to fight him or not. He just died on the battle so hard, so early, and just let him have it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Lando, you're the bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he's if he can stay in a good car, he's going to be
scary good.
Yeah, he's going to be a problem for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
I also like that Verstappen, all of a sudden he gets a couple of like sixth place and that, and he's like, I might just swap teams. It's like, you.
Wouldn't it be funny if you did go swap teams and then all of a sudden Red Bull goes, oh, we'll sign Daniel Ricciardo up.
That would be pretty funny.
Oh, boy. Well, that's the F1 podcast done. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure you check us out on all the socials, like and subscribe to us on YouTube, and we will catch us all next time.